Hey, here's part 2 of your Project 2 tutorial, Quarter 2 project tutorial. We have set up a test that, for all intents and purposes, has choices, but we haven't really been able to go to the next choice, and we really haven't been able to see if which one's correct. So that's what this video covers. All right, real quick, a little change. See, in our index, we have the name of each of these. These names actually need to be the same. I messed that up last video, sorry. So they should all just be whatever name you want, it doesn't matter, but that'll let it be so that you can only select one at a time. So they have to all have the same name. Alright, so we need a button to submit the form here. So we make a button tag, type equals button. Bootstrap has some nice button classes. You do btn-default. And then you type what you want inside the button. So we'll just say submit. There it is. Voila. Doesn't do anything yet, of course, because we have to hook it up to our JavaScript, and we have to hook it up using the onClick property. And it's going to run a function. So let's say we need to make a new function. We'll say it's called buttonClicked. And we actually have everything set up in our function so that it'll work fine. So onClick is buttonClicked. Alright. Then I'm just going to log a quick console log here to test out that this is indeed hooked up and working properly. So we're going to reload, we're going to open the console, we're going to check it out, and when they hit this, good, we get a test. Fantastic. Alright. So what do we need to do when the button is clicked? If you'll recall, we kept a counter, question counter, each time for each question. So each time this button is clicked for submit, we probably need to increment that counter. Alright. After that, we need to do these three methods. Display the answers, display the question number, all that stuff. Right, so now if we save and reload, we can get rid of this. And we hit submit, sure enough, it moves to question 2 of 5, and it asks us a new question. You'll notice that there's some, I would say, quality control issues here. First of all, number 4 is still selected. So we need to clear these choices. We need to make whenever we go to display the answer, we need to make it so that these are not showing. Do that using this type of code. You do the button.checked equals false. We just need to figure out what the button is, and it's not answer array. Let's see. But in choice name, see the inner HTML, we can set the choice name. Well, that's not really it. That's for each of these. Oh, but we could just set all of the input types to be unchecked whenever we display the answer. Let's do that. We'd probably have to select them with jQuery. And probably set attribute is how we do this. And we say checked false. Let's see if that works. I have no idea if it'll work. Oh, looks like it crashed. Didn't work. Alright, let's Google it. Radio buttons uncheck in jQuery. Remove attribute checked. Got it. Let's see if that works. Ah, sure enough, there it goes. That's nice. What happens if they hit submit with a blank? It still kind of goes. That's not what we want to have happen. So we do want to make sure that something, once the button is clicked, we need to make sure that there is an answer given. And I guess we might as well talk about how to check if the answer is correct. So what we need to do is we need to make a new array. And this should be your correct answers. And this should store, in order, all of your correct answers to each question. So I'm going to go ahead and type those in and pause it. Fantastic. That's exactly what we need. You need one as well. And then in our button clicked function, this is where we need to use it. So we need to somehow get we need to somehow get the value that's been selected out of the radio button. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of loop through all of the radio buttons, kind of like what we did here. And then if the button is checked, we're going to then get the inner HTML of the choice name. Okay, so we should probably do that before we do any incrementing. Here's the next question, please. So we should probably do that before we do this. So let's go ahead and write a for loop. For variable I equals 0, I is, oopsie, I is less than. Well, we need a length here, so let's go ahead and probably going to be less than the correct answers. Correct answers dot length. They're all the same length anyway, so it doesn't matter. All right. Cool. All right, so we need to, actually, we're not going to loop through the correct answers. What we're probably going to do is loop through all of the input types. Yeah, that seems like it's going to be what we need to do. However, we should probably give these a class so that we can reference them specifically. So let's go ahead and give them a class. We'll give them the class of radio. And that way, we can use a fun little JavaScript function called document.getElements by class name radio. And then we can, that turns an array, and we can loop through radio buttons. And then we can say current button is equal to radio buttons at I. All right, that's good. So now we want to check this. Well, let's first of all make sure this is actually working. So let's just make sure this is actually logging test 4 times when button is clicked. Because it might not be. You never know. Always good to test this stuff out first. Seems like it's logging it 8 times. Oh, because it goes to the next question and we're logging tests somewhere else, aren't we? Did we log tests somewhere else? On line 54. No, it is doing it here. Oh, see? There's more than one element. Okay, so there should just be radio button, not radio. There we go, and this will be radio button. Now it should work 4 times. Oh, apparently it didn't like radio button. I did something. Yeah, okay, let's just take a, how about radio B? Oh, because I did it, oh god. Hey, next time I do something like that, can you guys tell me I'm a moron? I tried to set the type to radio button. Come on, Mr. Myers. That is amateur. Okay. So this all works. We have to add the class of radio button. That should be fine. And then if we hit submit, we do get it 4 times. Perfect. Last time we're getting it for 8. Okay. All right. So in here, in our for loop, which is correctly working, we need to check if current button is checked. So to do that, we go current button dot checked is true. That means it's checked. So if it is, what we want to do is we want to get the value of whatever choice. And remember how in this for loop we did kind of choice name like this? We want to get that value. So we're going to get the choice name, and then we'll get this. We'll get the inner HTML, and we'll say selection is equal to document.getElementById choice name dot inner HTML. And then what we want to do is we want to store each selection in our, well, we don't actually have an array, so let's make one. We'll have a selected answers array, and it should be blank to start with. But each time we come up with a selection, we want to push it to selected answers. And that just places it in the next available space. Okay. Cool. Cool. Now, what we can also do, I mean, whether or not they got it correct, we probably want to push it to selected answers, but we could also check to see if it's correct. So inside this if statement, we might also write another one that says if selection is equal to, remember our array of correct answers at I, because they're in the same order. Maybe we have a variable here that indicates the number of questions they've got correct. Variable correct counter. Starts at 0, of course, but now we're going to add 1 to it. And maybe we might do other stuff later. I don't know. And then finally, once that loop is done, this all happens. Last thing, maybe right under this, okay? So if we find a button is checked, we probably don't need to go through the rest of the loop. So let's go ahead and do what's called break, which stops a for loop in its tracks. And you don't want to unnecessarily iterate over stuff. Let's see if it works. All right, so what was the answer to this one? 26. Question 2 of 5, 7. Well, this isn't going to be too useful. I mean, sure, it is kind of working as intended, but we're not getting any of the answers out of it. So, let's just go ahead and log correct counter at the end of each of these. So correct counter should only go up if we get it right. So 18 is the wrong answer. It should be 0 still. It is. 7 is the right answer, so this should be 1. Oh. Uh-oh. That's not good. What was the next answer? 19? Maybe 7 wasn't working. Maybe, I don't know. 39. It logs 2 again. Interesting. Something's going on with that. Correct answers at I. Oh, this wouldn't be... No, see, correct answers at question counter, not at I. We want to get question counter. There we go. Let's try again. 19. Oh, I lied anyway. That's not the right answer. 7. That should be 1. Good. 19 are in apps 1. 2. Good. 39. 3. Good. And absolutely. And this is the end of the test, and of course, it's run out. So how do we end the test? Well, we probably, before we do any of this looping stuff, or excuse me, before we do this, we probably want to make a check in here that sees if, well, let's add 1 to question counter. So we want to look at if question counter is greater than the length of our question array. Well, it could be equal to it too. So it's greater than or equal to the length of the question array. We should probably end the test here. And we can just, let's just say return for now. That'll stop the function at least. So let's go ahead and check it out. 19, 7, 19, all working. Now this should stop and do nothing. Logs 4, good. All right, so this definitely ends the test. And we're not going to cover this in this section. We'll cover it in a later section. But this is where we're going to want to display the score report, send scores to database, etc. So we'll put that comment in there for us now, but it's kind of sufficient to just return and to break it. We'll cover that in a later video. All right. Cool. So let's do some fun stuff. We probably want to tell the user whether or not they got the last question correct, or, instead of just going to the next one, maybe we want to tell them if they're correct. Maybe we don't. It's kind of up to you, but I do want to show you one more thing, which is how to check to make sure they actually submitted something, right? Because if they hit nothing, well, this still goes, and we need to show them that, hey, you can't do that. So in our button clicked function, radio buttons, if current button.checked is true, we have that going on. But we also need a way to figure out if nothing is checked, if nothing happens. Okay, so we probably need to create a flag. which basically is just going to tell us whether something's checked or not. It's going to start at false. If it is checked, we'll set it to true. And at the end of our for loop, after it's done, we'll write a little if statement. If checked flag is false still, right? Because it'll still be false if we never got to one. We need to display an alert. Now, Bootstrap has great alerts. They're really easy to use. I'm going to put an alert in, let's say between these two things, the question and the answers. So the way to do this is you go div class equals alert. You could have types, so alert.danger is like, hey, you screwed up somehow. And we could say, you didn't select a response. So if we save it and load it, well, it's, you know, kind of already there. Whoa, line 54 had an error. What's going on? Not Boolean, var checked flag. Duh. Okay, so you didn't select a response is still there. That's because we need to hide these alerts when the document is loaded. So you can actually do this pretty simply with a dot alert, because the only thing with the alert class, dot hide. That hides them. Maybe not when document is ready. Let's just throw it all the way at the top so it knows to do it right away. Because they should always be hidden by default. There we go. You notice before it kind of showed up first? Here, watch again. It showed up first and then disappeared. Well, I don't know, maybe the cache is working, but either way, let's put it all the way at the top. Okay, but we want to be able to show that alert if that checked flag is false. So let's go ahead and go dot alert show. Okay. Oop. Oh, never mind, that's fine. So if we hit submit with nothing in it, there we go. We didn't select a response. Oh, we also have to do return to break the function because it still went to the next question. There we go. All right, that's pretty cool. So we selected response and, well, the alert stays there. So maybe what we want to do is every time the button is clicked, we go back and we hide the alerts, because if they have shown up, we want them to disappear if they do get this correct. Awesome. Fantastic. All right, well, that about does it for this section of the tutorial. You now know how to store a user's correct answers. You know how to check if they actually have selected a correct answer. And most importantly, you know how to make pretty much your whole test. So you can, at this point, go ahead and put in all your content. Now, if you're looking to collect any additional data pieces, you need an array for each one. It's pretty simple. So let's say we're storing selected answers. Let's say question time. So that can also be an array. You know, question attempts you could try. That sort of thing. So those are all separate arrays that you store, and you can edit them in your button clicked function here. Every time the button is clicked, you can add to those arrays. So we'll talk more about that in class, about what you want to store, but you know, that's pretty straightforward. All right, next video what we'll do is we'll go over how to display a score report, or we'll go over how to send these scores to your database, which is great, and that'll be it. All right, hope you enjoyed.